So I've talked about War of the Worlds quite a bit on this channel, and I've talked about the fighting machines from War of the Worlds quite a bit on this channel, but today I want to focus on one particular design. Today we're going to take a look at these, the ones from the 2005 movie, talk a little bit about the way they're designed, some of their, I guess the proper word would be anatomy, and the way they were utilized by the aliens during their invasion. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, the 2005 War of the Worlds is, at least in my opinion, one of the best modernizations of the original book. It kept a lot of the story beats of the original book, and even a lot of the themes, and managed to maintain a lot of the sort of structural element of what made, in the original book, the Martians, and in the 2005 version, the aliens, so unique as far as alien invaders go, especially in an era where there's hundreds of works about alien invasions. For something War of the Worlds to really stand out, it really has to tie back to that book, and I think the 2005 film does it beautifully, and one of the reasons they do it so well is the fighting machines. So today let's dive into how these fighting machines are designed, what makes them so unique, and why I love them so much. One of the things I want to throw out there before we start with this is there's going to be a lot of comparisons here, specifically between the ones from the 2005 movie and the ones in the book, so I hope that's easy to follow. So let's start with the similarities, because there's a lot of similarities. In the book, the fighting machines are described as having an almost organic nature to the way they move, something that's often lost in a lot of variations of War of the Worlds, but the 2005 movie keeps this pretty close to heart when they design their fighting machines, giving them long tentacle-like legs that move almost like an aquatic animal, very fluidly and smoothly in a way that's almost unsettling, as it was put in a special feature on the original DVD, that they're designed to look like giraffes from far away. They're moving quickly, but you almost don't notice it because they're moving so gracefully, and when you learn how fast they're moving, it's kind of terrifying. Now, extrapolate that off to a gigantic death machine. It's a pretty impressive concept, and one that Wells tapped on in his book when he described the way the fighting machines moved back in the late 1800s. On top of that, they keep the fact that it's a tripod. I feel like that is the lowest common denominator, but the 2005 War of the Worlds, yes, I know they had 3 energy beams coming out the bottom, but that doesn't really count. They kept 3 legs, and I think that's pretty cool. Furthermore, the pair of heat rays, or death rays, whichever you want to call them, at the end of sort of dedicated arms is similar but not identical to the way they're described in the book, with them being, with the death ray being something that's held separately from the vehicle at the end of a tentacle, unlike some other depictions that have the laser or death ray or heat ray or whatever that particular variation has it being, coming out of the body of the fighting machine itself. They maintained the tentacles and the need to harvest people for their blood, which is a theme that is often lost in recreations of the original story, but is maintained in this version, which once again is cool. And with that, you have things like the basket on the back of the head, something that I have not seen in any other rendition, at least on screen, of War of the Worlds, that is very distinctive in the book and completely absent almost everywhere else, but maintained in this. Now, that being said, there's plenty of differences. These fighting machines have impenetrable shields, and I've made videos on why I'm not a fan of that. They're significantly larger than the ones from the book, which makes sense because they have to fight a modern adversary. That increase in size are going to make them far more intimidating. And they come up from underground, which is also a little stupid, but we're not going to dive into that. But with those in mind, I want to talk about how these machines worked, because they're fascinating. So at the top, you have the head of the fighting machine, which is the nerve center, where it's likely driven from up there, although we never know for sure. We know that the occupants spend time up there because we see at the end of the movie, one of them emerges from the head of a fighting machine. Interestingly, there's a distinction between the head and the body, with this being the head, then a neck, down to the body of the fighting machine. Now, the tentacles appear to come from the body, not the head, which kind of makes sense. The body is likely where much of the driving power comes from to move the 3 massive legs that have to push this thing across the land, so it makes sense that the tentacles, which would be a resource-intense element of the vehicle, would be located there as well. After all, they can access anywhere on the whole fighting machine. They're fairly long. Now, there are 2 tentacles that don't come out of here, though. I guess there are more, but there are 2 primary ones. And it's the 2 heat ray mounted arms, I guess is what we can call them. Those are mounted at the bottom of the head on the sides with the ability to retract to get them out of the way. Now, that's an interesting feature because if you're flinging tentacles around and trying to focus on collecting humans as opposed to fighting human military forces or simply massacring everything around you, you probably want those tucked away so they don't present a tangle risk for the snake-like tentacles that are flinging all over the place trying to grab whatever you're trying to grab. Now, in the original book, the basket that carried the people was mounted on the back of the head of the tripod, and that is maintained here where they're mounted sort of on the bottom on the back. Back here, this model doesn't have them, which is very true to the book, but is also functional from a logistical standpoint. If we assume that they're using humans for food or something other than just fertilizer for the red weed, the people would be most useful where the aliens are, and it seems like the aliens are controlling the fighting machines from the head of the fighting machines. Now, there's still plenty of questions that will never be answered, like how big of a crew does it take to operate one of these? Is it a one alien affair? Is there a small crew of 4 or 5, or is it 20, 30 of them in one of these machines making it work? I don't expect any of these questions to be answered. This movie is 20 years old now, but it is still, in my opinion, one of the best adaptations of War of the Worlds, at least one that changed the time period. If you'd like to learn more about fighting machines from other elements of War of the Worlds, and the way they tie back to the book, I'll leave a link up here to a video I made a while back covering the fighting machine from War of the Worlds in general, and sort of talking primarily about the ones from the books. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments what you think of the 2005 War of the Worlds, specifically the fighting machines from that film. Do you like them, or are they too organic looking? Are they too big? Do you like the fact that they have shields, or do you loathe that? Do you like this design, or are you not a fan? And if you have anything else like to see me cover in science fiction, anywhere in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.